Thank you. Now, the next item of business is topical questions, and our first question today is from Alex Cole-Hamilton.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government by what date the Royal Hospital for Children and Young People in Edinburgh will open.
Cabinet Secretary Jean Freeman.
On the 18th of July, I informed Parliament that on the 4th of July, I had instructed the planned move to be halted in the interest of patient safety. I also said that I had commissioned NHS National Services Scotland to undertake a detailed assessment of all the building systems in the new hospital which could impact safe operation for patients and staff. I said that this will determine the timeframe for migration of services to the new hospital and that a full report was anticipated in September. That timetable remains on track and publication is expected on the 11th of September, following which I intend to give a statement to the Chamber outlining our planned next steps.
Alex Cole-Hamilton.
I'm grateful to the Cabinet Secretary for that reply. The opening of this flagship hospital was cancelled 100 hours before patients were due to arrive, and we still don't know when it will open. Somebody in the food chain signed this hospital off in February, which seemingly absolved Multiplex of any contractual responsibilities. So can I ask the Cabinet Secretary who signed it off, and did the Government and NHS Lothian agree with their findings and their decision at the time?
Cabinet Secretary.
So, as Mr Cole-Hamilton undoubtedly knows, on the 2nd of July, NHS Lothian alerted the Scottish Government to the issue with ventilation system in the critical care unit of the new site. That is why, in addition to halting the move, I also commissioned NSS Scotland to undertake all of those other compliance checks to ensure that, because we had been informed so late of the problem with critical care, I wanted to be assured that every other aspect of the site was compliant with requirements and with guidance. As I've said, at the same time, I also commissioned KPMG to investigate the timeline for the whole design and build of this hospital, to identify why we had got to the late stage that we had got to before the problem with critical care was identified. Both of those reports will be published on the 11th of September, and at that point we will be able, having sight of those reports, and indeed the Chamber having sight of those reports and my statement, to undertake more detailed responses to these questions.
Alex Cole-Hamilton.
Again, I'm grateful for that reply. This unopened hospital is costing the public purse £1.4 million every single month. Children are being treated in a hospital that is well past its sell-by date, and we're still not entirely sure what went wrong. Serious questions are once again being asked about this government's ability to deliver major capital projects. So will the Health Secretary today instruct a full public inquiry into this fiasco?
Cabinet Secretary.
My short answer to that is no, I will not at this point. As I've said, I have commissioned 2 reports. They are on track to be published next week, as Mr Cole-Hamilton well knows, because I believe the business for next week is well known, and I will make a statement to Parliament at that point. At that time, all of the information that I have available to me will be available to this Chamber. We will be able to answer some of those detailed questions, including giving a clear timeline of when we expect the move to the new site to be made safely for both patients, staff and the families involved. In all of that, my driving interest is patient safety, and I'm sure that is the interest of everyone across this Chamber.
Can I ask members across the afternoon, in fact, to keep their supplementaries concise? Angela Constance, to be followed by Miles Briggs. Angela Constance.
Thank you. Patient safety, particularly for children, is a priority for us all. So when I've been advocating for the children's ward at St John's, senior managers at board level have always insisted that patient safety is their priority. So given that the intervention from the Cabinet Secretary to postpone the move so that the new hospital is as safe as it possibly can be, can the Cabinet Secretary advise if managers at the most senior levels of NHS Lothian have taken responsibility for these issues, as there is no place for inconsistency on the safety of children receiving NHS services?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, I certainly agree with the member that there is no place for inconsistency or slackness or negligence in terms of patient safety. Managers of NHS Lothian at all levels are very clear from me about my expectations on them when we have the KPMG report about the decision-making chain in all of this matter since the hospital was first designed all the way through, and we have the NSS report in terms of compliance at other levels and various sign-off decisions that were made, we will understand better how we got to this very late stage where it was clear that that hospital was not safe to move inpatient services and critical care to it because it did not meet the standards required, and I have had to take the decision that I have taken. At that point, I'm sure members will want to look further at these matters.
Miles Briggs, to be followed by Monica Lennon.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The impact on NHS Lothian of this further delay to the opening of the sick kids raises serious questions over the financial sustainability of the board, who are already projecting financial shortfalls of £29.5 million for this financial year. Can I therefore ask the Cabinet Secretary to confirm if SNP ministers will help meet future costs around the sick kids project?
Cabinet Secretary.
I have been very clear from the outset that cost will not hold us back in terms of ensuring that the new hospital is fit for purpose and is safe for patients and staff. At this point, it is not absolutely clear what the additional costs might be as the work continues to identify exactly what is the design, the procurement and then the installation of the work needed in critical care. Once that information is known, then members, of course, will have that information. I've been clear all along that I will be completely transparent with the information I have, the rationale I use to take decisions, and members will know all of that. At that point, we will understand what additional costs are required. Of course, if government assists with those costs, members have to be very clear that comes from within the NHS health portfolio, so there will be other aspects of healthcare across Scotland that may be required to be paused, delayed or moved on in order to meet any additional costs that have to be met in this regard.
Monica Lennon.
Thank you. Cabinet Secretary, the importance of patient safety has already been discussed by others and the need to be consistent. Can the Cabinet Secretary confirm what is being done to protect the neuroscience patients at the existing site, including people with brain cancer, MS and MND, who have been assessed as high risk due to the delay following fears over water safety in the current building?
Cabinet Secretary.
So NSS are undertaking specific risk assessment in terms of the new site in order to determine whether or not it is possible to move that unit from the Western General to the new site at the earliest opportunity. That risk assessment is, of course, one balanced against, as you rightly say, some of the areas of difficulty in the existing site for that unit. The overall risk assessment will balance the two together, and I will then make a decision about what is best to happen for that particular unit at Western General.
Apologies to Neil Findlay and Daniel Johnson. Hopefully they'll get an opportunity to ask when we have a statement next week. Question number 2, Alex Rowley.
Presiding Officer, to ask the Scottish Government what support it is providing to Fife Council to deal with the impact on pupils of the fire at Woodmill High School.
Cabinet Secretary John Swinney.
Presiding Officer, firstly, I'd like to record the Government's appreciation to the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service for the exceptional contribution of their personnel to try to save the school infrastructure in the fire on the 25th of August. The Scottish Government has been in regular contact with Fife Council since the fire at Woodmill High School to assist recovery and minimise disruption to the pupils' learning. I personally reiterated that support to the head teacher and the Director of Children's Services when we spoke last week. At my request, the Scottish Futures Trust is providing ongoing support and advice to the Council regarding options to accelerate pupils' return to a serviceable building as soon as practicable. I pay tribute to the head teacher and staff of Woodmill High School for their efforts in ensuring young people have had access to learning since the fire, and for ensuring that during this week all S1 to S6 pupils will return to full-time education, with additional support needs pupils returning to full-time education on Monday. I am pleased to confirm that the Scottish Government, in partnership with Fife Council, will include the construction of a new Woodmill High School in the first phase of the Learning Estate Investment Programme. Detailed discussions will take place with Fife Council and the local community on the approach to be taken to implement this commitment.
Alex Rowley.
I thank the Deputy First Minister for that statement. I would also want to pay tribute to the firefighters, the police, local community that had to deal with that situation. Can also pay tribute to Fife Council, who have put in place short-term measures, but they are short-term. I appreciate what he says about the replacement of the Woodmill High School and that happening, but even with the best will in the world, that may take 3-4 years for that to happen. And the real question and the real challenge, I think, is what happens in the medium term, because even if some of that building could be rescued and refurbished, then it is not enough, and we will need to put in place some kind of programme. So it's the medium term that I think is the real worry here, what's going to happen.
Cabinet Secretary.
I completely understand the issues that Mr Rowley raises, and they're fair issues to raise. In the short term, the priority has been to restore full-time education to young people. And I'm very grateful to Fife Council for the way in which this has been handled, and also for the cooperation that's existed with Fife College, who are accommodating some of the S5 pupils, to St Columba's High School, who are accommodating the S6 pupils, and to Queen Anne, Beath and Inverkeithing High Schools and the Vine Conference Centre, who will be providing the accommodation for the remainder of the school. And the ASM pupils are going to Blair Hall Primary School. Now, this obviously is quite a disruptive period, but that's been the short-term priority has been to restore full-time education for all of the young people. Mr Rowley is correct that we have to move to a medium-term solution because schools cannot be built in a day. We are in active discussions with the support of the Scottish Futures Trust to put those arrangements in place to meet the needs of young people. I think at this stage it is not finalised, but it is unlikely that much of the school infrastructure that was there before can be utilised. But that will be the subject of the detailed work that is underway. And as Mr Rowley will be familiar, there is already site clearance work underway at a very fast pace initiated by Fife Council. But I do assure him that the Government will engage closely with Fife Council to support the medium-term arrangements, which I recognise to be a significant priority for families, for pupils and for staff.
Alec Rowley.
Again, I welcome the response. The other schools in the area, I think we should praise all the teachers within Woodmill High School and what they've had to put up with, but other teachers and all the schools that are working hard to accommodate the children. But it is that medium term. Can I ask him, in terms of the longer term, he said that Woodmill High School, the replacement, would become the priority. Is he still looking at a joint campus with St Columba's High School, and will those discussions take place, because there is now grounds available at Woodmill High School to build such a campus?
Cabinet Secretary.
President Officer, when I spoke to Mr McIntosh, the head teacher at Woodmill High School last week, one of the significant issues he was addressing was the way in which the Woodmill support and ethos could be maintained when pupils were dispersed across what is going to be 6 or 7 sites. And Mr McIntosh was very keen to make sure that the type of pastoral support that is available to pupils is available in all of these locations, and I think the arrangements that have been put in place are correct to support that. In relation to the longer term questions, as Parliament knows, the Government has been engaged in discussions with Fife College and with Fife Council about the creation of a campus which would draw together a new campus for Fife College, St Columba's High School and Woodmill High School. Those discussions are very active, and indeed shortly before the fire at Woodmill High School I'd had an update conversation with both Fife College and Fife Council. So I would be keen to take forward those proposals because I think they are significantly beneficial to the local community. But as I said in my original answer, they will be the subject of detailed discussions with Fife Council because obviously the circumstances have changed as a consequence of a fire that none of us anticipated to be wrestling with. So we will engage in those discussions with Fife Council, but I am committed, and I hope the reassurance that I have given today of the Government's commitment under the Learning Estate Investment Programme to the rebuild of Woodmill High School will be of significant reassurance to the local community, and I will visit the site tomorrow to reinforce those points.
And apologies also to Annabel Ewing and Mark Ruskell. There's not enough time for any further supplementaries. Question number 3, Rona Mackay.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what action the Scottish Prison Service has taken in response to the determination of the fatal accident inquiry into the death of Alan Marshall at His Majesty's Prison, Edinburgh.
Cabinet Secretary Hamza Youssef.
Presiding Officer, first and foremost, I'd like to express my sincere condolences to Alan Marshall's family. Any death in our care is an absolute tragedy, and I'm determined that our justice system continues to learn and to improve so that we can avoid such tragedies from happening again in the future. In his determination, Sheriff Liddell makes 13 recommendations about steps he considers might realistically prevent deaths in similar circumstances in the future. SPS are rightly reflecting on the recommendations in detail, and in line with provisions within the Inquiries and Fatal Accidents and Sudden Deaths Scotland Act 2016, they'll provide a response to all the recommendations within 8 weeks. SPS has also confirmed that a range of actions were taken immediately following the incident, including additional training for staff. SPS have now established a working group to address the Sheriff's specific recommendations, in particular with reference to control and restraint, and the understanding of medical conditions which may be triggered or indeed exacerbated by the use of restraint. SPS will seek additional external expert advice as part of this review. I've been clear that lessons must be learned, and to ensure independent oversight, I've written to Her Majesty's Chief Inspector of Prisons, asking her to formally provide external assurance to the SPS's actions following from the FAI recommendations in conjunction with relevant independent experts as required. SPS met with members of Mr Marshall's family just yesterday, and I've also indicated that I will meet with them to discuss their concerns and the actions being taken in response to this very tragic incident.
Rona Mackay.
I want to express my condolences to Alan Marshall's family and sincerely hope that lessons will be learned from this tragic case. One of the recommendations, as the Cabinet Secretary said, was made by Sheriff Liddell, refers to a review of control and restraint. So can the Cabinet Secretary outline exactly what work will be carried out by SPS to ensure that all staff are fully trained in this respect?
Cabinet Secretary.
Yeah, just very briefly, because I think I made reference to it in my previous answer, that immediately after the incident, some work was taken in relation to the training involving control and restraint, but the Short Life Working Group will look at the processes around control and restraint. SPS have recognised that there should be external expert advice fed into that, but I've also, to give further reassurance, asked HMIP, our Inspectorate, to give independent external oversight to that process as well. But that will clearly be an issue of interest for many, obviously first and foremost for Mr Marshall's family, but no doubt for the Parliament wider, and I'll endeavour to keep the Parliament up to date in the most appropriate way possible.
Rona Mackay.
Thank the Cabinet Secretary for the answer. Will the Cabinet Secretary ensure that the Justice Committee are updated on any further developments?
Cabinet Secretary.
Yes, I'll make sure that is done through the committee, and of course if members that are not in the Justice Committee have an interest, of course I'll endeavour to keep them updated also.
Liam Kerr.
Presiding Officer, Rona Mackay rightly identified that the training and qualifications of prison officers are clearly of great import. The SNP's 2017 programme for government promised a prison officer professionalisation programme. Has it been delivered?
Cabinet Secretary.
The reason why that professionalisation programme has not come to fruition is because the members rejected it in a ballot. Now, I don't think the member would expect us to override the concerns of the members when that was put to ballot. Now, there is still an outstanding question of that professionalisation, so we are in continual conversation, or SPS is in continued conversation with the POA around professionalisation. But of course, we have to listen to the members and take the members, prison officers and others with us. Notwithstanding that, the work that has been done by the Short Life Working Group on this will hopefully bring a level of confidence to particular training, control and restraint that hopefully will give the public the confidence that they need.
Thank you very much. And again, I recognise the level of political interest. Apologies to James Kelly, John Finney and Lee MacArthur, as there's simply not enough time this afternoon for everything we want to raise.